The British Museum. Sub-Basement 3. Department of Anomalous Antiquities. My name is Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, Senior Archivist, Custodian of Restricted Collections. What you are about to hear has been recovered from sealed files, letters, journals, and testimonies once thought too disturbing for public record. Every statement you hear is drawn from Britain's forgotten centuries, the whispered history that hides between faith and fear. These are the National Occult Archives, filed, preserved, never closed. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOI 1634P, classification, priest's testimony, date of statement, 12th March 1634, location, Yorkshire. Author, Father Michael Ashworth. Testimony 1, Father Michael Ashworth, parish priest. Do record what happened when the dead woman spoke perfect Latin she never learned in life. Mary Fletcher was simple farm wife. She could not read or write. She spoke only English and poorly. When fever took her at age 32, I performed last rites, but Mary did not stay dead. 3 days after burial, her husband heard sounds from inside her coffin. We opened the grave. Mary sat up, eyes open but vacant, and began speaking. Not English, Latin, perfect ecclesiastical Latin, reciting prayers she could never have known. Her voice was wrong, too deep, too hollow, as though speaking from great distance. Omnia quae fecisti nobis, Domine, in vero judicio fecisti, she said. All that thou hast done to us, Lord, in true judgment thou hast done. I recognize the prayer. From the book of Daniel. But Mary had never attended seminary, never studied scripture, never heard Latin except during Mass, when she would not have understood it. Mary, I said, do you know me? She turned her head slowly. Pater noster, qui es in caelis. Our Father, who art in heaven. But the words were not prayer. They were mockery. Each word spoken with contempt, with hatred. Her husband tried to embrace her. Mary's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. Her fingers were cold, stiff. Memento, homo, quia pulvis es, she whispered. Remember, man, that thou art dust. It took 4 men to restrain her. We carried her back to the church. I attempted exorcism, reading from the Rituale Romanum, but when I commanded the presence to name itself, Mary laughed. Non sum daemon, she said. I am not a demon. Sum ipsa mors. I am death itself. For 3 days, Mary spoke only Latin. She recited entire passages of scripture backwards. She described theological debates in perfect academic language. She knew things no simple farm wife could know. Then she stopped. Her eyes focused. She looked at me and asked in English, "Why am I in the church?" She remembered nothing. Not dying, not being buried, not speaking Latin. The 3 days were filed away, erased from her memory. Mary lived 2 more months. She never spoke Latin again, but sometimes, late at night, I heard her whispering prayers in her sleep. Perfect Latin. Prayers for the dead. When she finally passed peacefully, truly died this time, I ensured proper burial rites. We do not speak of what filled her during those 3 days. We do not discuss what knowledge was archived in her tongue, what presence used her mouth to speak dead languages. But I know. Something borrowed her recovered body. Something filed itself into her flesh. Something that knew Latin, knew scripture, knew things that should remain unknown. The archived presence is still here, in this church, in these walls. waiting to fill another mouth, to speak through another tongue, to file itself into flesh that will preserve its voice. Father Michael Ashworth, Yorkshire, 12th March, 1634, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1002, A classification, Abbot's record. Date of statement, 9th November, 1502. Location, Lake District. Author, Abbot William Greystone. Record 1, Abbot William Greystone. Do record what walks the woods behind our monastery. Our monastery sits alone in the Lake District, miles from nearest village. We chose isolation for contemplation, for prayer, for separation from worldly concerns. But the woods behind the monastery are wrong. No birds sing there. No animals make their homes there. Even in summer, the trees seem dead, their branches bare. Brother Thomas went into those woods 3 weeks past. He was collecting mushrooms for our kitchen. He did not return. We searched for him. We found his basket, empty, abandoned near a great oak. We found his rosary, broken, beads scattered across the ground. We found his sandals, placed neatly side by side, as though he had removed them carefully before walking deeper into the woods. We did not find Brother Thomas, but we found something else. In a clearing, we found stones arranged in a circle. Not ancient stones, but freshly placed, still showing dirt from being moved. In the center of the circle was a hole, freshly dug, deep enough that our torches could not illuminate the bottom. Brother Paul knelt beside the hole, peering down. "I hear something," he said, "like breathing, like something sleeping down there." We pulled him back. We fled the clearing. We sealed the monastery doors and prayed. That night, Brother Thomas returned. He stood outside our gates, covered in dirt. He asked to be let in. His voice was calm, reasonable, but his eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark, reflecting no light. "Let me in," he said. "I am cold. I am one of you. Let me in." Brother Paul recognized something wrong. "Say the Lord's Prayer," he commanded. Brother Thomas smiled. "Pater noster qui es in caelis." He recited it perfectly, in Latin, then in English, then in languages we did not recognize. He recited it in voices that were not his, high voices, low voices, children's voices, old men's voices, 100 different voices speaking prayer in perfect unison. "Let me in," all the voices said together. "I have been in the woods. I have been in the hole. I have been archived. Let me in so I can file away what I have learned." We did not let him in. We prayed through the night. By morning, Brother Thomas was gone. But he returns each night, standing outside our gates, speaking in many voices, asking to be let in, promising to share what he learned in the woods, what he found in the hole, what archived him. We do not open the gates. We do not listen to his promises. We know he is not Brother Thomas anymore. He is something that wears Brother Thomas's appearance, something that was filed away in that hole, something that wants to be let in so it can file us away too. The woods are hungry. The hole preserves. Whatever sleeps below wants to archive more. And Brother Thomas, or what wears his form, waits patiently for us to open the gates. Abbot William Greystone, Lake District. 9th November 1502. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1678, I classification, Innkeeper's account, date of statement, 4th July 1678, Location, Cornwall. Author, Thomas Penrose, Innkeeper. Account 1, Thomas Penrose, Keeper of the Gallows Inn. Do record what happens in room 7. The inn is old, built 300 years ago, perhaps older. Room 7 sits at the end of the upper corridor, farthest from the stairs, closest to the old execution site that stands behind the inn. Travellers ask for room 7 because it is large, well appointed, with fine views of the moors. I give them different rooms. I tell them room 7 is being repaired, is occupied, is not available. I do not tell them the truth. Room 7 is occupied, but not by the living. A man died there 40 years past. Merchant named William Gray, facing debts and ruin. He was found in the morning, passed from this world in mysterious circumstances. His eyes were open. His mouth moved as though trying to speak, but he was gone, certainly gone, had been gone for hours. We buried him in unconsecrated ground behind the inn. We cleaned room 7. We rented it again. The new guest left after one night. He claimed someone watched him sleep, that he felt breath on his face, that he heard whispers in the darkness. Other guests reported the same. A presence in the room, a feeling of being watched, and always, always, the sound of creaking, as though something moved in the darkness above. I stopped renting room 7 10 years ago. I locked it. I forbade my staff from entering. But last month, a travelling merchant picked the lock. He needed room, had paid good coin, demanded to know why a room stood empty. I could not stop him. He spent one night in room 7. In the morning, I found him unconscious on the floor, pale and cold. I revived him with difficulty. He gasped, coughed, spoke. He tried to take me, the merchant said. Grey. He was there, standing in the shadows. He reached for me. He said, "You must file yourself. You must preserve yourself. You must stay with me forever." The merchant recovered. He fled the inn, never returned. But I went into room 7, and I saw him, William Gray, standing in the corner, transparent but visible. His mouth moved constantly, whispering words I could not hear. His hands reached toward me, beckoning. The shadows moved, though no wind stirred them. And beside Gray, I saw others, faint figures, barely visible, all standing in the darkness. Dozens of them, everyone who had ever passed in that room, all archived in room 7, all preserved in their final moments. The room collects them, files them away, preserves them forever. And Gray wants more. He wants every guest to join him, to stand beside him in the shadows, to be archived in his collection. I have sealed room 7, nailed boards across the door, but at night I hear sounds from above. The movement of many figures, many presences, shifting in darkness. The archived dead are patient. They wait in room 7, and someday someone will open that door again. And Gray will add another to his collection. Thomas Penrose, Innkeeper, Cornwall, 4th July, 1678, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA, 1 Form 45M classification, Monk's confession, date of statement, 27th October 1445, location, Durham, author, Brother Aldrich, scribe confession 1. Brother Aldrich, do confess what I did in the scriptorium. I was tasked with copying sacred text, the Gospel of Mark to be precise. I worked alone, at night, when scriptorium was empty and quiet. But I was not alone. As I copied, I felt presence watching me. I heard breathing that was not my own. I smelled something wrong, like earth, like age, like open tombs. I tried to ignore it. I focused on my work, on forming letters perfectly, on honoring God through careful copying. Then the letters began to change. As I wrote, in principio erat verbum. In the beginning was the word. The ink shifted. The letters rearranged themselves. They spelled different words, wrong words, backwards prayers. I crossed out the corrupted text. I began again. But again the letters changed, forming words I did not write, prayers I did not intend. Who does this? I demanded of the empty room. The candle flames bent sideways, though no wind blew. And in the darkness beyond the candles, I saw him. A monk, wearing our order's habit. His face was grey, his eyes were hollow. His mouth moved, but no sound emerged. "Who are you?" I asked. He raised one skeletal hand and pointed at the manuscript I was copying, at the original text, centuries old, that I was transcribing. His finger touched the parchment, and I understood. He was the original scribe, the monk who had copied this text 200 years ago. And he was still here, still copying, still working in the scriptorium, though his earthly life had long since ended. He was archived in his work, preserved in the act of copying, filed away in the manuscript that had consumed his life and now consumed his death. I tried to leave, but the door would not open. The dead monk moved closer, his hollow eyes fixed on me. His skeletal hand reached for my writing hand. He touched me. His fingers were ice, and I felt it, his memories flooding into me. I felt decades of copying, of writing the same letters over and over, of preserving words until the words became everything, until there was no identity, only the copying, only the preserving, only the endless filing of sacred text. I am copying still. My hand moves without my will. I write these words, but I do not choose them. The dead monk guides my hand. He archives through me. He preserves through me. He files through me. Soon I will be like him, archived in my work, preserved in the act of copying, filed away in the manuscripts that will outlive my flesh. The scriptorium preserves all scribes eventually. We become our work. We are archived in our letters. We are filed in our texts. And when our bodies fail, we continue copying, continue preserving, continue maintaining the archives that have consumed us. This confession may be the last thing I write by my own will. After this, there is only copying, only preserving, only the endless work of filing words that will outlast all of us. Brother Aldrich, Scribe Durham, 27th October, 1445, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, Noe 1580 8G classification, Gravedigger statement. Date of statement, 15th January 1588. Location, Somerset. Author, Robert Graves. Gravedigger. Statement 1. Robert Graves. Do state what I have seen in the churchyard at night. I have dug graves for 20 years. I know every corner of this churchyard, every stone, every plot. I know where the old graves lie and where the new ones go. But I do not know the figures I see walking between the stones after midnight. They look like living people. They wear ordinary clothes from all different times. Some dress from centuries past, some from decades ago, some from last year. They walk slowly, purposefully, as though searching for something. At first, I thought them mourners, visiting graves of loved ones, but they do not weep, they do not pray, they simply walk, touching each stone, reading each name, filing away each death. I spoke to one once, an old woman in ancient dress, touching stone after stone. "Who do you seek?" I asked. She turned to me. Her eyes were empty, dark. Her skin was grey as parchment. "I seek myself," she said. "I must find where I am filed. I must know where I am preserved." "You have passed," I said, understanding. "Yes," she agreed, "but I do not know where I am buried. I walk and walk, searching for my grave, for my stone, for my name carved in rock. I must find where I am archived before I can rest." She moved on, touching stone after stone, reading name after name, searching for herself among the filed dead. I see dozens of them each night now, all walking, all searching, all trying to find their own graves, their own stones, their own filed names. They are archived, but cannot find their archives. They are preserved, but do not know where they are preserved. The churchyard is full of searching dead. They walk every path, touch every stone, read every name, but their own names elude them. They cannot find where they are filed. They cannot locate their own preservation. Some have been searching for centuries. I recognize them from the ancient stones, people buried 500 years ago, still walking, still searching, still unable to find themselves among the archives of the dead. Perhaps their stones have weathered away. Perhaps their names have been erased by time. Perhaps they are filed somewhere without markers, in unmarked graves, in forgotten plots. Or perhaps filing creates this. Perhaps being archived means losing yourself, losing the ability to find yourself, losing all connection to your own preservation. You are filed away so completely that you cannot access your own file. You are preserved so thoroughly that you cannot find your own preservation. The searching dead walk every night. I let them search. I do not interfere. I know they will never find what they seek. They will walk forever, searching for graves they will never recognize, for stones that bear their names but mean nothing to them, for archives they cannot access though they are the archived. This is the fate of all buried dead: to be filed without comprehension, to be preserved without recognition, to be archived without any ability to find yourself in the archive. I dig graves, I file bodies, I preserve the dead, and I know that someday I will join the walkers, searching for my own grave, unable to recognize my own stone, filed so completely that I cannot find my own filing. Robert Graves, Gravedigger, Somerset, 15th January 1588, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOR 1721C, classification, Confessor's notes. Date of statement, 3rd May 1721. Location, Lancashire. Author, Father Edmund Cross. Notes, I, Father Edmund Cross, do record the confession I heard from a man who claimed to have already passed. John Mitchell came to confession on Tuesday evening. He entered the booth, knelt, and began speaking through the screen. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned," he said. His voice was cold, hollow, as though echoing from far away. "How long since your last confession?" I asked. 3 days, Father. 3 days since I left this world." I froze. "You claim to have passed?" "I am gone, Father, taken in my sleep by another's hand. I lie buried in the churchyard, but I could not rest. I had sins unforgiven, so I rose and came to confession. I looked through the screen. I saw his face, pale as snow, his eyes dark and sunken. I smelled earth, decay, the scent of the grave. "Tell me your sins," I said, not knowing what else to do. He confessed for an hour. Terrible sins: theft, adultery, dishonesty. Sins he had committed in life and carried into death. As he spoke, his voice grew weaker, fainter, as though fading. "I absolve you," I said when he finished, making the sign of the cross. "Thank you, Father," he whispered. "Now I can rest. Now I can be properly filed away." I heard him leave the confessional. I waited a moment, then emerged. The church was empty. No one was there. The next morning, they found John Mitchell's grave disturbed. The earth had been opened from inside. The coffin lid was displaced, but the body lay peaceful within, arms crossed, face serene. He was truly at rest now, properly filed away at last. But his brother came to me, terrified. "John visited me last night," he said. "After you heard his confession, he stood by my bed and said, 'I have been absolved, but you have not. Your sin remains unfiled. Your guilt remains unpreserved. Confess or walk as I walked.'" The brother confessed to wrongdoing. He confessed to causing his brother's death for inheritance, to concealing the truth, to claiming what was not his. He wept, begged forgiveness. I gave absolution. But I wonder, did John's spirit truly come to his brother? Or was the confession itself the haunting? Did hearing John's sins from beyond death create guilt so strong it forced confession? The dead seek filing. They want their sins preserved, archived, forgiven. They cannot rest until they are properly filed away, their sins recorded and absolved, their guilt preserved and purged. Now I hear confessions differently. I wonder if each voice is from this world or the next. I wonder if the sins I hear are from the living or the departed. I wonder if my confessional is doorway between realms, between the unfiled and the archived. The dead wait for filing. They wait for preservation through confession. They wait to be archived through absolution. And I am the filer, the preserver, the archivist of sins that span both life and death. Father Edmund Cross, Lancashire, 3rd May, 1721. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file NOA 1456 W. Classification: Widow's testimony. Date of statement: 19th August 1456. Location: Devon. Author: Margaret Weaver. Testimony: Margaret Weaver. Do testify that my husband returned from the woods, changed. Thomas went into Blackwood Forest to hunt deer. He left at dawn. He returned at dusk. But he was not Thomas anymore. He looked like Thomas. Same face, same height, same clothes. But his eyes were wrong. They did not blink. They stared without moving, like painted eyes, like glass eyes, like the eyes of something watching. "Thomas?" I said. "Are you well?" "I am Thomas," he said, but his voice was flat, without emotion, like someone reading words they did not understand. He sat at our table. He ate bread and cheese, but he did not taste it. He chewed mechanically, swallowed without pleasure, ate because bodies eat, not because he was hungry. That night, I woke to find him standing beside our bed, staring down at me, not blinking, not breathing that I could hear. "Thomas, come to bed," I said. "I am not tired," he said. "I do not sleep anymore. I was filed away in the woods. I am preserved now. I do not need sleep." "What happened in the woods?" I asked. "I found a place," he said. a clearing where the trees grow in a circle. In the centre was a stone, very old. With writing I could not read. I touched the stone, and something touched me back, something that lives in the stone, something that has been there for thousands of years, waiting, preserving, filing away anyone who touches it. What did it do to you? I asked, terrified. It archived me, he said. It copied me. It preserved everything I am. But it kept the original and gave me back only the copy. I am not Thomas. I am the archived version of Thomas. The real Thomas is still in the stone, filed away forever. I am just the preserved record, walking, talking, pretending to be him. I wanted to scream, but I was too afraid. Do not go into Blackwood Forest, the copy Thomas said. Do not touch the stone, or you will be filed away too, and a copy of you will return, wearing your face, living your life, while the real you is preserved in stone forever. The copy Thomas lived with me for 3 more days. Then he walked back into the forest. He did not return. I never went looking for him. I never entered Blackwood Forest again. The real Thomas is in there somewhere, filed away in stone, preserved forever. And I am here, alone, knowing my husband was archived, and only his copy came home. I tell this so others will know. Stay out of Blackwood Forest. Do not touch stones with strange writing. The forest files away the living. It preserves them in stone. It sends back copies that look right, but are not right, that wear familiar faces, but are not familiar, that pretend to be people they have archived. Margaret Weaver, Devon, 19th August, 1456. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. NOA 1693N classification. Nun's account. Date of statement. 7th December 1693. Location, Cornwall. Author, Sister Beatrice, Benedictine Order Account 1. Sister Beatrice. Do record what appears in the convent chapel at midnight. Every night at midnight, a woman appears at the altar. She wears the habit of our order, but from centuries past. She kneels before the crucifix. She prays silently, her lips moving but no sound emerging. We tried speaking to her. She does not respond. We tried approaching her. She seems solid but untouchable, there but not there, present but not alive. Sister Agnes recognized her from old paintings in our archives. Sister Catherine, she said, passed 300 years ago. Prayed so devoutly, she was found at this very altar one morning, having prayed all night without rest, gone peacefully in her devotions. She never stopped praying, Sister Agnes said. She is still praying, still archived in the act of devotion, still preserved at the moment of her passing. We watch her every night now. She appears exactly at midnight. She kneels in exactly the same position. She prays for exactly 1 hour. Then she fades, slowly, until dawn comes and she is gone. But lately others have joined her, departed sisters from throughout our convent's history, all appearing at midnight, all kneeling, all praying silently. Dozens of them now filling the chapel, all archived in their devotions, all preserved at prayer. They do not notice each other. They do not notice us. They are each alone in their preserved moment, each filed away in their individual prayer, each archived separately though they appear together. Last week, Sister Margaret joined them. She is still alive, but at midnight, a copy of her appears in the chapel. kneeling among the departed, praying silently. The living Sister Margaret sleeps in her cell, but her archive self prays with the spirits. I feel myself leaving, Sister Margaret told me. Each night at midnight, part of me goes to the chapel. Part of me is being filed away with the others. Part of me is being archived in prayer that will never end. She is fading, growing paler, growing quieter. Each night, more of her transfers to the chapel, to the praying spirit, to the archived version that kneels among those who have passed. Soon she will be entirely archived. The living Sister Margaret will disappear. Only the praying spirit will remain, preserved forever at midnight devotion. This is happening to all of us. We feel ourselves filing away. We feel ourselves being archived in prayer. We feel ourselves becoming spirits while still living, becoming preserved while still breathing, becoming filed away in the chapel that collects us. The convent is archive of devotion. It preserves prayers. It files away the praying. And eventually, it archives all of us, taking us while we live, preserving us while we breathe, filing us away in eternal prayer from which we will never rise. We pray in the chapel, and the chapel prays us. It archives us through our devotion. It preserves us through our prayer. It files us away through our worship. Soon we will all be spirits, all archived, all preserved in midnight prayer, all filed away with Sister Catherine and all the others who came before, who were preserved, who now pray eternally in the chapel that has become their archive, their filing system, their eternal preservation. Sister Beatrice, Benedictine Order, Cornwall, 7th, December 1693. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. Noe 11511P. Classification. Pilgrim's Record. Date of statement. 22nd June, 1511. Location, Northumberland. Author, Richard Walker. Pilgrim Record 1. Richard Walker. Do record what I encountered while walking the old Roman road alone. I travelled from York to Durham, following the ancient road. I walked alone as penance, carrying only water and bread. The road was empty. I saw no travellers for 3 days. On the 4th day, at twilight, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. A man walked 20 paces back, dressed in Roman armour, marching with military precision. I stopped. He stopped. I walked. He walked. Always 20 paces behind, always marching, never speaking. "Who are you?" I called. He did not answer, but I saw his face clearly. It was grey, hollow, belonging to one long gone. His eyes were empty. His armour was rusted, ancient. He was no living man. I walked faster. He matched my pace. I ran. He ran. Always 20 paces behind, always marching, his footsteps perfectly timed with mine. Night fell. I could not see him anymore, but I heard him. His footsteps, his armour creaking, his breathing, dry, rasping, like wind through an empty chest. I found shelter in ruined building beside the road. I blocked the door with stones. I huddled in darkness listening. The footsteps came to the door. They stopped. I heard scraping, metal on stone, as though he was testing the blocked door. Then his voice, dry as ancient paper. Ego sum in via archivatus. I am archived in the road. Semper ambulin nunquam quiescens. Always walking, never resting. Tu es viator, ego sum via. You are traveller. I am the road. I understand. understood. He was not following me. He was the road itself. He was archived in this ancient path, preserved in stone and dirt, filed away in the very ground I walked on. Every step I took awakened him. Every mile I walked made him walk too. He was Roman soldier, perhaps, had marched this road 2,000 years ago, had passed on it, and the road had preserved him, had archived his endless marching, had filed him away in stone so he would march forever. I waited until dawn. The footsteps continued outside all night, marching back and forth, guarding, patrolling, doing what soldiers do forever, because the road preserves them in their duty. When light came, I fled. I abandoned the Roman road. I cut across country, through forest and marsh, avoiding all ancient paths. But sometimes, at night, I still hear him, marching, 20 paces behind, following me not because he chooses, but because I awakened him, because I walked his road, because I filed myself into his preserved march. The old roads remember their travellers. They preserve them. They archive them. And sometimes they make them march forever, filed away in stone, preserved in path, maintained in eternal journey that never reaches destination. Do not walk ancient roads alone. Do not follow paths that are too old, too preserved, too thoroughly filed. The roads remember. The roads preserve. The roads archive everyone who walks them. And sometimes they do not let you leave. Richard Walker, Pilgrim, Northumberland, 22nd June, 1511. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 11598H. Classification, Hermit's Testament. Date of statement, 14th April, 1598. Location, Scottish Highlands. Author, Brother Angus, Hermit Testament. Brother Angus, Hermit of the High Peaks, do testify that something lives in the caves above. I came to these mountains seeking solitude, seeking God, seeking separation from worldly things. I built my hermitage in the valley. I prayed alone. I was content. But the caves above called to me. Deep caves, ancient, carved by water over thousands of years. They called with voices like wind, like water, like whispers from stone. I climbed to the caves one winter morning. I entered the largest. The passage sloped downward, descending into darkness my candle could barely penetrate. I walked for hours. The cave descended deeper and deeper. The walls were carved with symbols, not by water but by hands. Ancient hands. Hands from before Christ, before Rome, before memory. At the bottom, I found a chamber, large enough for cathedral. The ceiling was lost in darkness, and the walls were covered with names, thousands of names, carved in stone, names in languages I recognized and languages I did not. Latin names, Celtic names, names from tongues that have not been spoken for millennia. And as I read the names, I understood. This was archive. This was filing system. This was where the mountains preserved everyone who had ever passed in them. Every climber who fell, every traveller who froze, every hunter who was lost, every person who left this world alone in these mountains, all filed here, all carved in stone, all archived in this deep chamber. I touched one name, and I saw him, felt him, experienced his final moments. I felt him falling, felt the cold taking him, felt his last breath leaving. The name preserved everything. The filing was complete. I touched another name, another passing, another preservation. Each name was archive of someone's ending. Each carving was filed a memory of final moments. Then I heard scraping, stone on stone. Something was carving. Someone was adding new names. I turned. In the darkness beyond my candle, I saw them. Figures, grey and withered. The archive departed. They were here, in the chamber, carving their own names, filing themselves away, preserving their passings in stone. They did not threaten me. They simply carved, adding names to the walls, thousands of names, tens of thousands, all the departed of the mountains, all working together, all filing themselves, all preserving their own endings in this deep archive. One approached me, ancient man, departed so long his form was weathered. He held chisel made of bone. He pointed to the wall, to blank space, to where my name would go. Not yet, I said. I'm still alive. He nodded. He understood. But he showed me the chisel. He showed me how to carve. He taught me how to file, how to preserve, how to add names to the archive. When you pass, his gesture said, come here. Add yourself. File yourself. Preserve yourself in stone with all of us. I fled. I climbed back to the surface. I have not entered the caves again. But I know I will. When my time comes, I will descend. I will take the bone chisel. I will carve my name with all the others. I will file myself into the mountain's archive, preserving my passing in stone that will last forever. The mountains remember everyone who leaves this world in them. The caves preserve all who pass. The archive grows with each ending, each filing, each name added by the preserved departed, who cannot stop preserving, cannot stop filing, cannot stop adding to the archive that will never close. Brother Angus, Hermit Scottish Highlands, 14th April, 1598. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1672V. Classification, Vicar's Report. Date of statement, 8th October, 1672. Location, Norfolk. Author, Reverend Thomas Blackwood. Report 1, Reverend Thomas Blackwood. Do report the children who speak in tongues during Sunday service. 3 children in my parish began speaking strangely, not English, not Latin, not any language I recognized. They spoke in church, during prayers, during hymns. Words that hurt to hear, that made ears ache, that seemed wrong in ways I cannot articulate. I examined them separately. Each child was normal alone, but together, in church, they spoke the unknown language, and they spoke in unison, perfectly synchronized, as though all 3 were one mouth speaking. I consulted with other clergy. They advised spiritual intervention. I prepared the rites, but when I attempted the rituals, the children laughed. All 3 in perfect unison, laughing with one voice. Then they spoke, in English, still synchronized. We are not possessed. We are preserving. We are filing away the old language. We are archiving what must not be forgotten. What language? I demanded. The first language, they said together. The language spoken before Babel. The language that God spoke to Adam. The language that has been preserved in the earth, in stones, in ancient places. We found it, we dug it up, and now it uses us to speak again. Where did you find this? In the old barrow, they said. The burial mound behind the church. We dug into it, seeking treasure. We found stone, with writing. And when we read the writing, the language entered us. Now we preserve it. Now we speak it. Now we cannot stop speaking it. The three children speak the old language constantly now, not just in church, but always. They speak it to each other. They speak it in their sleep. Their families are troubled, and the language is spreading. Other children who hear it begin speaking it too. The old language files itself into new mouths, preserves itself in new tongues, archives itself in children who become vessels for ancient speech. I sealed the barrow. I consecrated the ground. I prayed over the children. Nothing helps. The language has been awakened. It was filed away in stone for thousands of years. Now it is free, and it uses children to speak itself, to preserve itself, to archive itself in living tongues. 10 children speak it now. Soon it will be 20, then 50. The language is preserving itself by teaching itself, by filing itself into every child who hears it, by archiving itself in a new generation. Eventually, everyone in the parish will speak the old language. Everyone will preserve it. Everyone will be unarchived into its preservation. And English will be forgotten, replaced by the language that God spoke, that was filed away, that now returns through children's mouths. This is how archives preserve themselves. They wait, they file themselves away, and when they are opened, they spread, they teach, they archive themselves into new vessels. The old language waited thousands of years. Now it speaks again. And it will not be silent until everyone speaks it, until everyone preserves it, until everyone is archived into its ancient, terrible syllables. Reverend Thomas Blackwood Norfolk, 8th October, 1672. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1734, T. Classification, Tavern Keeper's Statement. Date of statement, 16th November 1734. Location, Shropshire. Author, William Barlow, Tavern Keeper. Statement 1. William Barlow, Keeper of the Bell and Crown Tavern. Do state that room 4 is occupied by someone who checked in 50 years ago and never left. The room is not empty. The bed shows impressions as though recently slept in. The wash basin contains water that never evaporates. The candles burn down but are whole again each morning. But no living person stays there. Room 4 has been empty, or appears empty, for 5 decades. Until you look at it at night, through the keyhole. Then you see him. Old man, sitting in the chair by the window. He wears clothes from 50 years past. He stares at the wall. He never moves. He never blinks. He never speaks. His name was Edward Sterling. Merchant. He checked into room 4 in 1684, paid for 1 night, was found the next morning, passed peacefully in his sleep, sitting in that chair, staring at that wall. We buried him. We cleaned the room. We rented it again. But guests complained. They felt watched. They heard breathing. They saw impressions forming on the bed as though invisible weight pressed down. They fled before morning. I looked through the keyhole one night. I saw Edward Sterling sitting in his chair, staring at the wall, gone for 50 years but still there, still occupying the room, still checked in. I tried to remove him. I had priests bless the room. I had the room consecrated. I burned sage, sprinkled holy water, prayed every prayer I knew. Edward Sterling remained, sitting, staring, filed away in room 4, preserved in his final position, archived in the tavern forever. Now other departed guests join him. I see them through the keyhole. 6 of them now, all who left this world in this tavern over the years, all filed into room 4, all sitting together, all staring at the walls, all archived in the same small space. The room collects departed guests. It preserves them. It files them away, and they cannot leave. They are archived in room 4 forever, bound to the tavern, preserved in the place where they left this world. I no longer rent room 4. I tell guests it is not available. But at night, I look through the keyhole. I count those who remain. 6 now. Soon there will be 7, 8 more. The room archives everyone who passes here, and I am old. I live in this tavern. I will leave this world here. When I do, will I join them? Will I be filed into room 4? Will I sit with Edward Sterling and the others, staring at walls forever, archived in the tavern that was my life? Those who remain wait in room 4. They are patient. They have eternity. And they wait for me to join them, to be filed away with them, to be preserved in the tavern's archive of departed guests who checked in but never checked out. William Barlow, Tavern Keeper, Shropshire, 16th November, 1734, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. Noe 1487C. Classification. Crusaders account. Date of statement. 25th March, 1487. Location. Yorkshire. Author. Sir Geoffrey Markham, Returned Crusader. Account 1. Sir Geoffrey Markham, returned from the Holy Land. Do account for what followed me home. I fought in the Crusades for 7 years. I witnessed terrible things. War changes men. When I finally returned to England, I brought something back with me. Something that should have stayed in the desert. It appears at night. A figure wrapped in burial cloths, standing at the foot of my bed. Its face is covered. Its hands are grey and withered. It smells of hot sand, of ancient tombs, of places where nothing lives. It does not speak English. It speaks a language I heard in the East. Arabic, perhaps, or something older. The words sound like prayers, like laments, like recitations from holy books I cannot name. Every night, it stands there, reciting. Its voice is dry, patient, eternal. It recites for hours. Then, before dawn, it fades. I tried to drive it away. I hired priests. We performed blessings, exorcisms, rituals of banishment. The figure remained. It is not demon, one priest said. It is memory. You archived something in the Holy Land. You filed away something through your actions there. Now it follows you. Now it preserves itself in your presence. What did I archive? I asked. The consequences of war, he said. All the destruction you witnessed. They are filed in that figure. They are preserved in those burial cloths. They follow you because you created their archive. You made them into preserved collection through your participation. I understand now. The figure is not one person but many. All those affected by the Crusades, archived together, preserved in one form, following me because I filed them away through my actions in battle. They recite their prayers because they cannot stop. They are archived in prayer, preserved in their final words, maintained in their final moments forever. And they will follow me forever, reciting, reminding, filing themselves into my consciousness. I cannot escape them. They are my archive. I am their preserver. We are bound together, the witness and the witnessed, the filer and the filed, the one who archived and the archive itself. When I pass from this world, I will join them. I will be wrapped in those burial cloths. I will stand with them, reciting prayers in languages I do not speak, archived with all those I witnessed, preserved together in one terrible collection. This is the cost of witnessing war. You archive what you see, you file it away, you preserve it, and it remains with you forever, maintained in your memory, bound to your existence, following you because you created their archive through your witness. The figure stands at my bed every night, reciting, preserving, filing, and I listen, knowing I created it, knowing I bound myself to it, knowing we are archived together forever. Sir Geoffrey Markham, Returned Crusader, Yorkshire, 25th March, 1487, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1612 M classification, Midwife's record, date of statement, 9th January 1612. Location, Cornwall. Author, Goodwife, Agnes Stone, midwife. Record Y, Agnes Stone, midwife. Do record the child who was born remembering a life he had not lived. I delivered Sarah Miller's baby on a cold January morning. Normal birth, healthy boy. But when the child opened his eyes, he spoke. Not baby sounds, words, clear words, in a man's voice, an old man's voice. Where am I? The baby said. Why am I small? Why am I here again? Sarah screamed. I nearly dropped the child. The baby looked at his tiny hands. No, he said. No, I passed. I was old. I was laid to rest. Why am I here? Why am I filed into new flesh? What are you? I demanded. I am Thomas Gray, the baby said. I left this world last year. I was 73. I remember it. I remember being laid to rest in the churchyard. But now I am here. Now I am baby. Now I am filed into new life. Sarah's husband had passed last year. Thomas Gray, 73 years old, buried in the churchyard just as the baby described. You cannot be Thomas, Sarah said. Thomas was my father-in-law. You are my son. I am both, the baby said. I am Thomas Gray, archived in new flesh. I remember my life. I remember my passing. I remember everything. The filing preserved me. My passing archived me. And now I am preserved in new body, new life, forced to live again, though I wanted to rest. The baby wept, an old man's tears from baby eyes, an old man's grief from baby lungs. I do not want this, Thomas and the baby said. I do not want to be preserved. I do not want to be filed into new life. I want to rest. But the archive will not release me. It files me back into life. It preserves me in new flesh. It forces me to continue. The baby lived for 3 days. It spoke constantly in Thomas's voice, remembering Thomas's life, begging to be allowed to truly rest, to be released from the filing that forced him into new existence. On the 3rd day, the baby passed, just stopped breathing. Sarah buried him next to Thomas Gray's grave. 2 graves for one man, one for his old body, one for his preserved return. But I wonder, did Thomas truly find rest, or is he filed away again, waiting to be preserved in next baby, next body, next life? Is he archived forever, unable to rest, forced to live again and again, because passing cannot file him permanently? Perhaps we all are. Perhaps we are all archived through life into death, into life again. Perhaps we are all preserved, filed, maintained in endless cycle. We think we rest, but we are just being filed away until next preservation, next body, next terrible return. Thomas wanted rest. His passing gave him none. Filing is eternal. Archives never close. We are preserved forever whether we wish it or not. Goodwife Agnes Stone, Midwife, Cornwall, 9th January 1612. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1765R. Classification, Rector's Diary. Date of statement, 19th June 1765. Location, Dorset. Author, Reverend Samuel Hardwick. Diary entry Y, Reverend Samuel Hardwick. Do record the congregation that attends midnight mass. My church is empty during the day. Normal services attract few parishioners. My congregation dwindles yearly, but at midnight the church fills. Every pew occupied. Dozens of people, all dressed in old-fashioned clothes, all sitting silently, all staring at the altar. I tried greeting them. They do not respond. They do not move. They sit like statues, like paintings, like preserved moments of congregation. I tried conducting service. I read scripture, led prayers, gave sermon. The midnight congregation listened silently. They never prayed along, never sang hymns, never moved. After service, they simply faded, like morning fog disappearing. One moment there, next moment gone. I researched church records. I found them, all of them. Names matching parish registers from centuries past. Departed parishioners, all listed as buried in churchyard, all returning at midnight to attend service. They are archived in worship. They preserve their devotion so completely that they cannot stop attending church. Even their passing cannot prevent their attendance. They are filed into perpetual worship, preserved in eternal service, maintained in midnight mass that never ends. Now those who have departed outnumber the living. My midnight congregation is larger than my living congregation. The archived worshippers are more faithful than the current parishioners. I serve them both now. Living services at dawn, departed services at midnight. The filed congregation and the current congregation, both worshipping in same church, separated only by time and the veil between worlds. But the living congregation shrinks while the departed congregation grows. Each time a parishioner leaves this world, they join the midnight mass. They are archived into worship. They are preserved in devotion. They fill the pews with filed faith. Soon I will have only departed congregation, only archived worshippers, only preserved parishioners who cannot leave, cannot stop attending, cannot end their eternal church service. And when I leave this world, will I join them? Will I be filed into midnight worship? Will I lead services for those who have departed while being departed myself? Archived forever in the role I served in life. The church preserves all who worship in it. It files them. It maintains them. It keeps them attending forever, preserved in their devotion, archived in their faith, maintained in eternal service from which passing is no escape. Reverend Samuel Hardwick, Dorset, 19th June, 1765. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1533B. Classification, Bishop's Testimony. Date of statement, 4th February 1533. Location, Durham. Author, Bishop Edmund Greystone. Testimony 1, Bishop Edmund Greystone. Do testify that the cathedral crypt contains something that should not be there. The crypt is old, older than the cathedral above it. The foundations go down to Roman times, perhaps earlier. We bury bishops there, holy men, saints. But last month, we opened a sealed section, part of the crypt that had been walled off for unknown years. We found stairs leading deeper, down to levels that should not exist. We descended. The stairs went down for hundreds of feet, far below the cathedral, far below the foundations, down into solid rock that had been carved, shaped, made into chambers. At the bottom, we found a door, iron, ancient, locked with mechanism we could not understand, and carved on the door, in Latin, a warning. Here is filed what must never be read. Here is preserved what must never be known. Here is archived what must never be released. We should have turned back, but curiosity overcame wisdom. We broke the lock. We opened the door. Inside was a library. Not books, but tablets. Stone tablets. Thousands of them, covering every surface, stacked floor to ceiling, all carved with writing in languages I did not recognize. And the smell, like burning, like sulfur, like the air itself was wrong, poisonous, filed away from normal air into something that should not be breathed. Brother Thomas read one tablet. His eyes moved across the carved words. Then he screamed. He screamed and could not stop screaming. We carried him up to the cathedral. He screamed for 3 days. Then he passed, still screaming, his eyes wide with terror at what he had read. We sealed the door again. We walled up the stairs. We filed away the location, tried to forget what we had found. But I know it is there, below the cathedral, below the crypt, below the holy ground, a library of things that must not be known, an archive of forbidden knowledge, a filing system for what humans should never understand. And it calls to me. I hear it at night, whispers from below, voices from the sealed chambers, words in unknown languages promising knowledge, promising understanding, promising everything. If I just go down again, just read the tablets, just file the forbidden knowledge into my mind, I resist. But I'm old, I am weak, and the forbidden archive is patient. It has waited centuries. It can wait longer. Eventually, someone will go down again. Someone will open the door. Someone will read the tablets. And what is filed there will be released, will be known, will be archived into human consciousness, where it will destroy us all. The forbidden library waits below, filed, preserved, never closed, waiting for someone to archive its terrible knowledge into the world above. Bishop Edmund Greystone, Durham, 4th February 1533. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOO 1698S classification, Shepherd's account. Date of statement, 12 September 1698. Location, Welsh Mountains. Author, Rhys Morgan, Shepherd Account 1, Rhys Morgan. Do account for the stone circle that only appears in fog. I tend sheep on the high slopes. I know these mountains well. Every path, every rock, every landmark. But in fog, the mountains change. I find places that do not exist in clear weather. And one place in particular, a stone circle. 9 standing stones, arranged in a ring, with a flat stone in the center. It appears only in fog. When the fog lifts, the stones are gone. The ground shows no trace of them. They exist only when visibility is poor, when the world is archived in whiteness, when everything is preserved in mist. Entered the circle once. I stepped between the stones and touched the central slab. Everything went silent. No wind, no sheep, no sound at all. And in the silence I heard voices, hundreds of voices, thousands, all speaking at once, all saying the same thing in languages I did not know. I felt cold, not winter cold, but grave cold, the cold of endings, of being filed away. The stones were freezing me, preserving me, archiving me. I fled. I ran from the circle, but for days after, I was cold. No fire could warm me. No blanket could stop the shivering. I was being filed into the circle, being preserved in the stones, being archived in the fog. The cold faded eventually, but I still feel it sometimes, especially in fog. The pull of the stone circle, the desire to return, to step into the ring again, to be filed completely. Other shepherds have vanished in fog. We find their sheep wandering, but never the shepherds themselves. They entered the circle, I think. They were archived. They are preserved in the stones now. Their voices added to the thousands that speak in unison, all filed away in fog that never clears for them. The stones preserve anyone who enters. They archive in fog. They file away the living, making them part of the collection, part of the preserved thousands who speak eternally in the silent circle. I avoid fog now. I bring my sheep down from the high slopes. When mist rises, I will not be archived. I will not be filed. I will not join the voices in the stone circle that exists only in whiteness, only in preservation, only in the fog that archives all who enter it. Rhys Morgan, Shepherd Welsh Mountains, 12th September, 1698, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. NOA 11589P. Classification. Physician's notes. Date of statement. 27 May 1589. Location. London. Author Dr. Marcus Webb. Notes. I, Dr. Marcus Webb, do note the illness that causes patients to speak only in quotes. 7 patients have come to me with same condition. They cannot speak original words. They can only repeat things they have heard before. Quotes from sermons, from conversations, from books read to them. Everything they say is archived speech, preserved words, filed phrases from elsewhere. They remember who they are. They understand what is said to them. But when they try to respond, only archived words emerge, only preserved sentences, only filed phrases from their memory. One patient can only quote scripture. Everything he says is Bible verse, appropriate or not. Consider the lilies, he says, when asked about his health. They toil not, neither do they spin. Another quotes only her departed husband. Every word she speaks is something he once said, preserved in her memory, now the only words she can access. Good morning, my dear, she says. The weather is fine. His words, spoken through her mouth, filed away and replayed endlessly. They are becoming archives. Their original speech is gone. They can only repeat what is preserved in their memories. They can only speak filed words, preserved phrases, archived sentences from elsewhere. The condition spreads. I think through speech itself. When archived words are spoken, they file themselves into new listeners. The listeners then begin speaking archived words, preserving more phrases, creating more filing. Soon everyone in London may speak only in quotes, only in archived words, only in preserved phrases from elsewhere. Original speech will disappear. All language will be filing, preservation, archiving of words already spoken. We will become walking collections, archives that speak, files that move, preserved speech animated but not alive, organized but not original, maintained but not meaningful. This is the end of conversation, the conclusion of original thought, the preservation of language so complete that language expires, becoming only archive of itself, only filing of past words, only preservation of what was spoken before. I write this while I can still write original words. Soon I too will speak only archived phrases, only quotes, only preserved words. I will be filed into the collection. I will be preserved a speaking archive. I will maintain what others said while saying nothing myself. The archived speech spreads. The preserved words multiply. The filed language consumes the living language. Soon there will be only archives speaking to archives. Preserved words exchanged between living files. Maintained phrases the only remaining communication. Dr. Marcus Webb, London, 27th May, 1589. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. NOA 1956. A classification. Anchorite's final words. Date of statement. 1st November 1716. Location Essex. Author Sister Marjorie, Anchorite. Final words. Sister Marjorie, sealed in my Anchorite cell, do record my final words before silence claims me. I chose Anchorite life willingly. To be sealed in cell attached to church, to pray perpetually, to separate from world completely. The bishop blessed me. The wall was built. I was enclosed. That was 10 years ago. 10 years of prayer, of silence, of separation. 10 years of being filed away from the world, preserved in this small cell, archived in my devotion. But something is wrong. I am not just physically sealed. I am being spiritually sealed, filed away not just in cell, but in something deeper, something final. I can no longer remember the world outside. I remember this cell only, this cell and the prayers I speak. Nothing else remains. My memories are being archived away from me, preserved somewhere I cannot access, filed into walls that hold not just my body, but my past, my thoughts, myself. I am becoming the cell. The cell is becoming me. We are filing into each other, preserving each other, archiving into single entity that is neither human nor stone, but something filed, preserved, maintained. Soon I will not speak. I will not think. I will not be Marjorie anymore. I will be only archived prayer, preserved devotion, filed worship. The cell will maintain me as I maintain the cell. This is the true Anchorite existence. Not separation, but archiving. Not isolation, but preservation. Not withdrawal, but filing so complete that you become the file, become the archive, become the preservation itself. Other Anchorites before me are still here, still in their cells though their earthly forms ended centuries ago, still praying though their mouths are dust, still filed in their devotion, preserved in their cells, archived in their separation. I will join them, soon, when the filing is complete, when the preservation is total, when the archiving finishes its work. We are the Church's archive. We Anchorites. We are filed away in our cells, preserved in our prayers, maintained in our devotion. We are living files becoming departed files, but remaining files forever. Preserved in stone, maintained in silence, archived in cells that will never release us. This is my last original thought. After this, only prayer, only archived words, only preserve devotion. I will be filed completely. I will be preserved totally. I will be archived forever in the cell that has become me and that I have become. The anchorite cell maintains all who enter. The walls preserve everything. The stone archives the devoted forever. Sister Marjorie, Anchorite, Essex, 1st November, 1716. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. NOA 558 W classification. Widow's account. Date of statement 23rd August 1558. Location Yorkshire Moors. Author Elizabeth Thornton. Widow account 1 Elizabeth Thornton. Do account for the figure that walks across the moor at dusk. My cottage sits alone on the high moors, 3 miles from nearest village. My husband passed 2 winters ago. I live alone by choice, tending my garden, keeping my sheep. But I'm not alone on the moors. Each evening at dusk, I see him, a man walking across the empty moorland. Always the same path, always the same steady pace. He wears monk's robes, brown and tattered. His hood is up. I have never seen his face. At first, I thought him a traveller. I called out, offering shelter. He did not respond. He simply walked, following his path across the moor, disappearing into the darkness. The next evening, he appeared again. Same time, same place, same path. Walking as though following a route he had walked 1,000 times before. I asked in the village about monks travelling the moors. The priest grew pale. No monks walk those paths, he said. Not for 300 years. There was an abbey there once, but it fell to ruin long ago. Where did the monks go? I asked. They did not leave, the priest said quietly. They stayed. They were archived in their devotions. They walk their ancient paths still, preserved in their routines, maintained in their duties though the abbey is gone and their order is ended. I watched more carefully after that. The monk walks the same path every evening, but he is not alone. Behind him, spaced evenly, walk others, a line of monks, perhaps 20, all following the same path, all wearing the same tattered robes, all keeping their ancient routine. They walk where the abbey cloisters once stood. They follow paths that existed 3 centuries ago, but are gone now, replaced by wild moor. They process as they once processed, praying as they once prayed, living their monastic routine, though they have long since left this world. One evening, I was caught on the moor at dusk. The monks appeared. They walked toward me. I stood frozen as they approached. They walked through me, not around me, through me. I felt cold, such cold. I felt their prayers, heard them chanting in Latin, felt the weight of 300 years of archived devotion passing through my living flesh. Kyrie eleison, they whispered as they passed. Lord have mercy. Their voices were like wind, like distant echoes, like prayers spoken from very far away. They continued walking, following their path, keeping their routine, filed away in their devotions, preserved in their ancient ways, maintained in patterns that death did not break. I do not go onto the moors at dusk anymore. I stay inside. I watch from my window as the monks walk their eternal path. 20 figures in tattered robes, keeping their ancient routine, archived in devotion that spans centuries. They are peaceful, I think, content in their preservation. They walk where they always walked. They pray as they always prayed. They maintain their order, though their abbey is dust and their world is gone. But sometimes, on quiet evenings, I hear them chanting. The wind carries their voices across the moors. Latin prayers, ancient hymns, the sound of archived faith that will never cease, never end, never stop walking the paths that once were sacred. Elizabeth Thornton, Widow Yorkshire Moors, 23rd August, 1558. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1623B. Classification, Blacksmith Statement. Date of statement, 5th December, 1623. Location, Lancashire. Author, John Forgehammer, blacksmith. Statement 1, John Forgehammer. Do state what I found in the abandoned church forge. I was hired to clear out old St. Cuthbert's Church. The building had been empty for 50 years, slowly falling to ruin. The parish wanted the iron fittings removed and melted down for new use. The forge was in a side building, unused for decades. The door was sealed shut. I had to break it open. Inside, everything was as though the blacksmith had left yesterday. Tools hung neatly. The anvil was clean. Coal sat ready in the furnace. But dust covered everything. 50 years of dust. On the anvil lay an iron cross, partially finished. The smith had been making it when he stopped. Beside it lay his hammer, positioned as though he had just set it down. I felt wrong touching anything, but I had my orders. I reached for the hammer. The moment I touched it, I heard him. The blacksmith, hammering, the ring of iron on iron, the hiss of hot metal plunged in water, but the forge was cold. No fire burned. The anvil was empty. Yet the sounds continued. Hammering, working, creating. The archive smith was still working, still forging, still maintaining his craft, though he had left this world decades past. I tried to leave. The door would not open. I pulled, pushed, threw my weight against it. It held firm as though sealed from outside. The hammering grew louder. I turned, and I saw him, faint, transparent, but visible. The blacksmith, working at his anvil, hammering the iron cross. His face was hollow with exhaustion. His eyes were empty, but his hands moved with practiced skill, shaping the metal, forming the cross. He looked at me. His mouth moved. "Help me finish," he whispered, not in voice but directly into my mind. "Help me complete the work. I have been forging this cross for 50 years. I cannot finish alone. I am too weak, too archived, too preserved in this one unfinished task." "Why do you not rest?" I asked. "I cannot rest," he said. "Not until the work is complete. I was making this cross when my heart failed. I fell here, at this anvil, with the cross unfinished, and I cannot leave until it is done. I am filed away in this incomplete work. I am preserved in this unfinished task. I will hammer forever unless someone completes what I began." I picked up the hammer. It was ice cold. I examined the cross. It needed only a few more strikes to shape the final arm. I worked the metal. 3 strikes, 4. The cross took its final shape. A simple iron cross, well-made, honest work. The moment I finished, the blacksmith sighed. A long, relieved sigh. "Thank you," he whispered. "Now I can rest. Now I am not archived in incompletion. Now I am free." He faded. The hammering stopped. The forge fell silent. The door opened easily. I left, taking the completed cross with me. It hangs now in the new church, a memorial to the smith who could not rest until his work was done, who was archived in incompletion, who hammered in the dark for 50 years, waiting for someone to finish what he began. Beware of unfinished work. It archives us. It files us away in incompletion. It preserves us in tasks not done. The blacksmith taught me this. Finish your work before you leave this world, or you may find yourself working forever, archived in the incomplete, preserved in the unfinished, maintained in eternal labour that never reaches completion. John Forgehammer, Blacksmith, Lancashire, 5th December, 1623. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1471P. Classification, Prioress's Journal. Date of statement, 18th October, 1471. Location, Kent. Author, Prioress Margaret of Canterbury, Journal Entry Y. Ein, Prioress Margaret, do record the voices that sing in our convent well. Our well is ancient. It predates the convent by centuries. Some say it was holy place even before Christ came to Britain. The water is sweet, cold, never failing. But 2 weeks past, we heard singing from the well. Not one voice but many. Women's voices, singing in harmony. The song was beautiful but strange, in no language we recognized. Sister Anne lowered a lantern into the well. The singing grew louder. The light showed nothing but stone walls and dark water. But the voices continued, echoing up from below. "Who sings?" Sister Anne called down. The voices stopped. Then, in Latin, they answered, "Nos sumus quae archived sunt in aqua." We are those who are archived in the water. Nos sumus sorores veteres. We are the ancient sisters. I ordered the wells sealed, but that night, water began flowing up, not spilling over, but rising up the well shaft, defying nature, climbing toward us. And in the water, we saw faces, women's faces, pale, transparent, preserved in the water itself. They were nuns, ancient nuns from centuries past, archived in the holy well, preserved in the sacred water, maintained in the depths where they had gone seeking God. "Why are you in the well?" I demanded. "We went down seeking visions," they sang. "We descended seeking God's voice in the water. We went deeper and deeper, and the water preserved us. It archived us in its depths. It filed us away in its darkness. We are here forever, singing in the sacred water, maintained in the holy depths." The faces faded. The water receded, but the singing continues. Every night we hear them. The archive sisters singing their eternal hymns, preserved in the holy water, filed away in the ancient well. We do not drink from that well anymore. We sealed it with iron grating. We blessed it with every prayer we know. But the singing continues. The archived nuns maintain their devotions in the depths, preserved in water that has become their eternal chapel. Sometimes, at night, we see light glowing from the well, not fire, but pale, cold light, the light of the preserved sisters, keeping their eternal vigil in the water that archived them. Sister Anne grew obsessed with them. She spent hours at the well, listening to their singing, learning their songs. Last week, she disappeared. We found her habit folded neatly by the well. The grating had been opened from inside. We never found her body. But now, when the archive sisters sing, we hear a new voice. Sister Anne has joined them. She is archived in the water now. She sings with the ancient sisters. She is preserved in the holy well, filed away in the sacred depths, maintained in the eternal choir that never ceases. I have ordered all sisters to avoid the well, but I fear it calls to us. The archive sisters want company. They want new voices for their choir. They want us to join them in the water, to be preserved in the depths, to sing forever in the dark beneath the earth. Prioress Margaret of Canterbury, Count, 18th October, 1471. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, Noe, 1709H. Classification, Hunter's Report. Date of statement, 9th March, 1709. Location, Scottish Highlands. Author, Angus MacLeod. Hunter. Report 1, Angus MacLeod. Do report what I found in the hunter's bothy on Ben Nevis. A bothy is simple shelter in the mountains. Stone walls, turf roof, no door. A place for shepherds and hunters to shelter from storms. I was tracking deer when snow came sudden and heavy. I knew of a bothy 2 miles up the mountain. I made for it as the storm worsened. The bothy was occupied. A man sat against the back wall, wrapped in blankets, perfectly still. Room for one more? I asked, shaking snow from my coat. He did not answer. I looked closer. His eyes were open, but did not blink. His skin was grey as stone. He had been gone for weeks, perhaps months, frozen by the mountain cold. I should have left, but the storm was too fierce. I had no choice. I settled in the opposite corner, as far from the frozen man as possible. Night came. The wind howled. I tried to sleep. Then he spoke. "They are coming," he said. His voice was like wind through hollow places, like ice cracking. "They are coming up the mountain. You must not let them in." I stared at him. His mouth had not moved. His eyes had not blinked. But he had spoken. "Who is coming?" I whispered. "The lost ones," he said. "The ones who passed on this mountain. The ones archived in snow and ice. They walk the slopes at night. They seek shelter. They seek warmth. They seek living flesh to inhabit so they can feel warm again." "How long have you been here?" I asked. 3 winters, he said. "I came here in a storm like this. I froze before dawn. But I did not leave. I stayed, preserved in the cold, archived in the ice. And now I guard this bothy. I keep the lost ones out. I prevent them from finding shelter where they might reach down to the valley, where they might find living people to inhabit." Scratching sounds came from outside. Not wind, not animals, hands, scraping at the stone walls, feeling for gaps, searching for entry. "Do not let them in," the frozen man said. "Do not open to them. They will seem pitiful. They will beg for shelter. They will use voices of loved ones, but they are archived dead. They are preserved lost ones. They want only to inhabit you, to use your warmth, to file themselves into your living flesh." The scratching grew more insistent. Voices called from outside. My mother's voice, my dead brother's voice. They begged me to open the bothy, to let them in from the cold. I blocked my ears. I pressed myself against the wall. I did not look toward the entrance. The frozen man watched the doorway all night, keeping vigil, maintaining his guard, protecting the living from the archived dead who scratched and called and begged to be let in. By dawn, the scratching stopped. The storm cleared. I thanked the frozen guardian and fled down the mountain. But I wonder about him. Still there, still frozen, still guarding the bothy from the lost ones who climb the mountain seeking warmth, seeking living flesh, seeking escape from their preservation in ice. How many are there? How many lost ones archived in the snow? How many preserved dead walk the mountain at night, scratching at doors, calling with familiar voices, seeking to inhabit the living. The mountains archive all who pass in them. The cold preserves perfectly. The ice files away forever. And the preserved dead do not rest. They walk, they scratch, they call. They seek warmth they will never feel again. Angus MacLeod, Hunter, Scottish Highlands, 9th March, 1709, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1584C, classification, curate's notes, date of statement, 14th July 1584, location, Devon, author, Curate Timothy Ashford, notes. I, Curate Timothy Ashford, do note the child who speaks only in prayers. Young William Marsh, age 7, has not spoken a word of his own in 3 weeks. He speaks only prayers, scripture, liturgy. Every word from his mouth is holy text, recited perfectly, in sequence, as though reading from invisible book. His parents brought him to me in desperation. He was normal, his mother said. Then he found a book in the old chapel ruins. He read from it, and since then, only prayers. What book? I asked. We do not know. It crumbled to dust when we tried to take it from him. But he had already read enough. The prayers archived themselves in him. They filed themselves into his mind. Now they are all he can speak. I examined the boy. He looked at me with normal child's eyes, aware, present, understanding. But when I asked his name, he said, In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Can you speak your own words? I asked. Dominus vobiscum, he said. The Lord be with you. His parents wept. Is he possessed? His father asked. No, I said. He is archived. The prayers have filed themselves so completely in him that his own words cannot emerge. He has become living prayer book. He is preserved text, walking, breathing, but containing only sacred words. I attempted to free him. Aetior tried exorcism, thinking perhaps it was spiritual oppression. William simply recited prayers throughout, responding to every Latin phrase with the appropriate liturgical response. He was perfect prayer book, perfect archive, perfect preservation of sacred text. But he was not a child anymore. The child William was filed away beneath the prayers. His personality was preserved under layers of sacred text. He was archived so completely that we could not reach him. 3 more children have been affected. They played in the old chapel ruins. They found more pages from the ancient prayer book. They read, and now they too speak only prayers, only scripture, only archived sacred words. The chapel was destroyed 400 years ago. The monks were massacred by raiders. Their prayer books were burned. But the prayers survived. They archived themselves in the ruins. They filed themselves into the stones. They waited, preserved in the rubble, for someone to read them again. Now they spread. 4 children speaking only prayers, then 7, then 12. The prayers filed themselves from child to child. The sacred texts archive themselves in young minds, where they can be preserved, where they can continue existing, where they can maintain themselves through living vessels. The village priest wants to stop it. But how do you fight prayer? How do you oppose scripture? The words are holy, the texts are sacred, yet they archive children, file away their personalities, preserve them as nothing but speaking repositories of ancient devotions. I fear for William. I fear for all of them. They are becoming less human, more text. They are being preserved as living archives. They are being filed as walking prayer books. And someday, perhaps soon, the child within will be completely archived, completely preserved, completely lost beneath the layers of sacred text that have filed themselves into his mind. The old monks archived their prayers perfectly, too perfectly. The prayers preserved themselves beyond the monks' deaths. And now they seek new vessels, new minds, new children to file themselves into. The archive spreads through innocence. The preservation continues through youth. The filing persists through children who cannot resist the ancient words that want so desperately to be spoken, to be preserved, to be archived in living tongues once more. Curate Timothy Ashford, Devon, 14th July 1584. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. NOA 1652 M classification. Miller's account. Date of statement. 28th November 1652. Location. Somerset. Author. Henry Millwheel. Miller account 1. Henry Millwheel. Do account for what grinds in my mill at midnight. My mill has ground grain for 3 generations. It stands on the river. Wheel turning with the current. Stones grinding day after day. Good honest work. But at midnight, the mill runs by itself. The wheel turns, though I have locked it. The stones grind, though I have put no grain between them. And something is ground there, something that is not wheat or barley or any earthly grain. I went to investigate one midnight. I brought lantern and courage. The mill wheel was turning, water flowing, stones grinding. But I had locked the sluice gate. No water should flow. Yet the wheel turned anyway, powered by something other than river current. I climbed to the grinding floor. The stones turned, grinding, grinding, but nothing was between them. They ground empty air, or so I thought. Then I saw shapes, transparent, barely visible, people shapes, being pulled into the grinding stones, being ground, being crushed, being processed by the mill that archives everything, preserves everything, files everything into powder, into dust, into preserved fragments. They made no sound. These shapes, these grinding souls, they simply flowed into the stones like grain flowing into the hopper, being processed, being ground, being archived into dust. I recognized one. Old Thomas Wright, passed last year. His shape was being pulled into the stones, ground, powdered. His essence was being archived by the mill, filed away in dust, preserved as powder that the mill collects in its ancient works. "Thomas," I called. "Why are you here?" His shape turned to me. "The mill grinds all," he whispered. "Everything must be processed. Everyone must be filed. The mill has ground grain for centuries. But grain is not all it grinds. It grinds everything that comes to it. It processes all. It archives all. And we who have passed come here to be ground, to be filed, to be preserved as dust that will never spoil, that will never decay, that will remain forever." More shapes appeared, dozens of them, all the village dead from the past century, all flowing into the grinding stones, all being processed by the mill that preserves them, that files them as dust, that archives them in powder form. "Does it hurt?" I asked. "No," Thomas said. "It is transformation. We are ground from one form to another. We are processed from flesh memory to dust memory. We are archived from whole to parts. The mill preserves us perfectly, Every particle of dust contains our complete selves. We are filed in 1,000,000 pieces, each piece complete, each piece whole, each piece preserved forever. The grinding continued. The shapes flowed endlessly into the stones. The mill processed them, archived them, filed them away as dust that accumulated in the mill's dark corners, in its hidden spaces, in its secret chambers. I swept the mill the next day. I gathered buckets of dust, strange dust. It felt warm, alive, aware. This was not grain dust. This was archived souls. Filed dead, preserved people ground to powder. I keep the dust. I do not know what else to do with it. It is the village dead, processed and preserved. It is our ancestors, archived and filed. It is everyone who has passed, ground to dust, maintained in powder form forever. The mill still grinds at midnight. The stones still turn. The dead still flow into the hopper, still submit to processing, still allow themselves to be ground, filed, archived into dust that will preserve them longer than any tomb, any monument, any memory. The mill grinds all. That is its nature. That is its purpose. It processes everything into preservable form. It files everything into storable dust. It archives everything that comes to it, grinding endlessly, preserving perfectly, maintaining its grim work every midnight, every night, forever. Henry Millwheel, Miller, Somerset, 28th November, 1652. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1938R. Classification, Rector's Diary. Date of statement, 6th January 1738. Location, Cornwall. Author, Reverend Jonathan Seaside. Diary entry. Why, Reverend Jonathan Seaside, do record the tide that brings back the drowned. My church sits on the cliff overlooking the sea. Below is the cove where fishing boats launch. It is dangerous water, strong currents, hidden rocks. Men are lost there every year, but they come back, not alive, not as corpses washing ashore, but as something else, something preserved by the sea, archived by the water, filed by the depths. It began 3 months ago. At low tide, figures appeared on the beach, standing, staring at the cliff, at the village, at the lives they left behind. They were drowned men. I recognized them. Thomas Penrose lost 5 years ago. William Trethyn lost 10 years ago. James Polwell lost last winter. All standing on the beach, preserved in the moment of their drowning, archived by the sea. They do not move. They stand where the tide leaves them. They stand until the tide returns and takes them back. Then they are gone, filed away again beneath the waves. But each time the tide goes out, more appear. The beach fills with drowned men, all standing, all staring, all preserved in their drowning, all archived by the water that took them. I went down to the beach. I approached Thomas Penrose. His skin was grey. His eyes were filled with seawater. His clothes were shredded by rocks and current. "Thomas," I said, "can you speak?" Water poured from his mouth. Not words, just water, endless water. The sea speaking through him. The depths expressing themselves through his preserved form. I tried touching him. My hand passed into him like passing into cold water. He was not solid. He was archived in liquid form. He was filed as water memory. He was preserved as sea thought. The fishermen fear the beach now. They launch their boats quickly at high tide. They return before low tide when the drowned appear. They do not want to see the archive dead, the preserved drowned, the filed ones who stand on the beach staring at the life they lost. But I watch them, every low tide, counting them, recording them, noting as new drowned join the collection. The sea archives all who drown in it. It preserves them in its depths. It files them in its currents. And at low tide, it displays them, showing us what it has preserved, what it has archived, what it maintains in its cold storage. Last week, young Peter Carbis fell from the cliff. His body was never found, but at the next low tide, he appeared on the beach, standing with the others, staring up at his home, already archived, already preserved, already filed by the sea that took him. His mother screamed when she saw him. She ran down to the beach. She tried to embrace him, but she embraced only water. He was not there, not truly. He was archived elsewhere, in the depths. What stood on the beach was only his preserved memory, his filed presence, his archived form that the sea displays but does not release. The tide came in. Peter and all the others faded, dissolved, returned to the sea, filed back into the depths, preserved once more beneath the waves. They will return at the next low tide. They always return. The sea displays its archive. The water shows its preservation. The depths reveal what they have filed. And we must watch, must see, must acknowledge that the sea remembers all, preserves all, archives all who enter it and do not return. I pray for them. But prayer cannot reach them. They are filed too deeply. They are preserved too perfectly. They are archived in the sea, and the sea does not release what it preserves. It only displays them twice daily at low tide, showing us its terrible collection, its perfect preservation, its complete archive of all who have drowned in these waters. Reverend Jonathan Seaside, Cornwall, 6th January, 1738, end of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, Noe 1567, a classification. Apothecary's record. Date of statement, 11th September 1567. Location, London. Author, Master Robert Physic, Apothecary Record Y. Robert Physic, do record the medicine that preserves memories after death. I created it by accident. A tincture for improving memory in the elderly. Rosemary, ginkgo, and certain mushrooms I gathered from old graves. I thought nothing of the grave mushrooms. Many useful fungi grow in cemeteries. My first patient was elderly scholar. His memory was failing. He could not recall his own work, his own writings. He was desperate. He took my tincture daily for a week. His memory improved dramatically. He recalled everything, his childhood, his studies, every book he had read, every word he had written. Then he passed, peacefully, in his sleep. His heart simply stopped, but his memory did not stop. 3 days after his burial, his students reported seeing him in the library, not as ghost or spirit, but as memory made visible. They saw him reading. They saw him writing. They saw him doing what he always did. Is it truly him? They asked me. I investigated. I went to the library at midnight, and I saw him, the scholar, sitting at his usual desk, reading his usual books. But he was transparent, faint, made of preserved memory rather than living flesh. I spoke to him. He looked up. He smiled. Master Physic, he said, thank you for your medicine. It preserved my memory so perfectly that my memory survived my body. I am filed in my own recollections. I am archived in my own thoughts. I am preserved as pure memory, living in the places I remember, doing the things I remember, existing as remembered self rather than physical self. Are you well? I asked. I am perfect, he said. I am all memory and no pain, all thought and no flesh, all preservation and no decay. Your medicine archived me completely. I am filed in memory. I will exist as long as anyone remembers me, and I remember myself perfectly, so I will exist forever. Other patients took my tincture, other elderly people seeking better memory, and when they passed, they too became preserved memories. They appeared in places they remembered, doing things they always did, filed in their own recollections, archived in their own thoughts. London now has dozens of them, memory-preserved people, walking their remembered streets, visiting their remembered places, living in past they recall so perfectly that their memories became more real than their bodies, more permanent than their flesh. But the medicine has a terrible side effect. Those preserved as memories cannot form new memories. They are filed in past. They can only repeat what they remember. They cannot learn, cannot grow, cannot experience anything new. They are archived perfectly, but completely, preserved so thoroughly that they cannot change, cannot develop, cannot become anything except what they already remember being. I destroyed the formula. I will make no more memory medicine, but those already preserved remain. Dozens of memory people walking London, visiting remembered places, doing remembered things, filed perfectly in past, archived completely in recollection, preserved as memory, that outlived flesh but trapped in memories that will never change, never grow, never become anything new. This is the danger of perfect preservation. What is archived perfectly cannot change. What is filed completely cannot grow. What is preserved thoroughly cannot become anything except what it was when preservation began. The memory people taught me this. They exist but do not live. They persist but do not progress. They are maintained but not alive. Beware medicines that promise perfect memory. They may preserve you too well. They may file you so completely that you become your memory rather than having memory. They may archive you as nothing but recollection, trapped forever in perfect past that can never become future. Master Robert Physic, Apothecary, London, 11th September, 1567. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file. Noah 1695. F classification. Friar's Testament. Date of statement 22nd April 1695. Location Northumberland. Author Friar Benedict, Franciscan. Order Testament 1. Friar Benedict. Do testify what lives in the hermitage cave. I sought solitude for prayer. I found cave on the mountainside, remote and peaceful. Previous hermits had lived there. The cave walls showed their marks, scratched prayers, carved crosses, evidence of devoted isolation. I made the cave my home. I prayed. I fasted. I sought God in silence. But the cave was not silent. At night, I heard whispering. Many voices, speaking in Latin, reciting prayers, chanting psalms. The voices of previous hermits, archived in the cave walls, preserved in the stone, filed in the rock where they had prayed for so long. I was not afraid. I joined them. I prayed with the archived voices. I chanted with the preserved hermits. I added my devotions to theirs. But the cave wanted more. Each night, the whispers grew louder. Each night, the archived hermits called to me more clearly. They wanted me to join them, not just in prayer, but completely. They wanted me to become part of the cave, to be preserved in the stone, to be filed in the rock with them. I felt the cave pulling at me, not physically, but spiritually. The stone wanted to archive me. The rock wanted to preserve me. The cave wanted to file me away with all the other hermits who had prayed here, who had sought God here, who had been preserved here. I tried to leave, but the cave entrance was different, narrower, harder to navigate. Each day, the entrance seemed smaller, as though the cave was closing, as though it was sealing me in, as though it wanted to trap me and preserve me and file me away forever. One night, I saw them, the previous hermits, transparent forms embedded in the cave walls, dozens of them, all praying, all moving their lips in silent devotion, all archived in the stone, all preserved in the rock, all filed in the cave that had become their eternal hermitage. They looked peaceful, content, preserved in their devotions, archived in their prayers, maintained in the cave that had consumed them. "Join us," Fabard whispered. "Let the cave preserve you. Let the stone file you away. Let the rock archive you. We are happy here. We pray eternally. We are preserved forever in devotion that never ends." I fled. I squeezed through the narrowing entrance. I ran down the mountain. I did not look back. But I feel the cave calling me. I feel it pulling me. I feel it wanting to preserve me, to file me away, to archive me in its stone walls with all the other hermits who sought solitude and found permanent preservation. I warn others. Beware of places where many have prayed. Beware of stones that have absorbed decades of devotion. Beware of caves that have preserved centuries of hermits. They become archives. They become filing systems. They become preservation machines that collect the devoted, that maintain them in stone, that keep them praying forever in rock that will not release them. The cave still calls me. In dreams, in quiet moments, I hear the archived hermits whispering my name, inviting me to return, promising eternal prayer, promising perfect preservation, promising to file me away in stone where I will pray forever, archived completely, preserved perfectly, maintained eternally in the hermitage that consumes all who enter seeking God. Friar Benedict, Franciscan Order, Northumberland, 22nd April 1695. End of file. Proceeding to next recovered document. The following document was never intended for public release. Case file, NOA 1628T. Classification, Teacher's Notes. Date of statement, 17th March 1628. Location, Oxford. Author, Master Edward Schoolman. Teacher notes, I. Edward Schoolman, do note the student who remembers lessons he never attended. Young Thomas Bright, age 15, arrived at my school last autumn. Bright boy, eager to learn. But strange things happened when he entered the old classroom. The classroom had been used for teaching for 300 years. Generations of students had sat at these desks. Centuries of lessons had been taught on this floor. When Thomas sat at the oldest desk, he gasped. His eyes went distant. He began reciting Latin grammar, Greek philosophy, mathematical proofs, lessons taught decades ago, centuries ago, by teachers long dead. "Thomas," I said, "what are you doing?" He looked at me. "I remember," he said. "I remember all the lessons. Every lesson ever taught in this room. They are archived in the desk. They are preserved in the wood. They are filed in the classroom. And when I touch the desk, I access them. I know everything that was taught here. I tested him. I asked questions from subjects I knew were taught 50 years ago. Thomas answered perfectly. He knew lessons from before his birth, lessons from before his grandfather's birth. The desk had absorbed 300 years of teaching. It had archived every lesson. It had preserved every word spoken by every teacher. It had filed away centuries of education. And Thomas could access it all. Other students began touching the desk. They too gained archived knowledge. They too accessed preserved lessons. They knew things they had never been taught, remembered classes they had never attended, learned from teachers who had been gone for generations. The desk was perfect archive, perfect preservation, perfect filing of all knowledge taught in that room. But there was a problem. The students who accessed the archived lessons began forgetting their own lessons. Their own memories were being replaced by archived memories. Their own learning was being overwritten by preserved learning. They were becoming repositories of past education, while losing capacity for present education. Thomas was worst affected. He spent hours at the desk, accessing centuries of archived lessons. He learned everything. He knew everything taught in that room for 300 years. But he forgot himself. He forgot his family. He forgot his own life. He became nothing but archived knowledge, pure preservation, complete filing of education, with no room left for personal memory, personal growth, personal existence. I removed the desk. I burned it. But the knowledge it archived had already transferred to Thomas and the others. They carry it now. They are walking archives, living libraries, human filing systems containing centuries of preserved lessons. They answer any question about subjects taught in that room. They recite lessons perfectly, but they cannot learn new things. They are too full of archived knowledge. They are preserved so completely that nothing new can enter. They are filed so thoroughly that personal growth is impossible. Thomas sits in my school still, but he is not student anymore. He is archive. He is preservation. He is filing of 300 years of teaching, maintained in boy's body, accessed by anyone who asks him questions, preserved perfectly, but no longer growing, no longer learning, no longer living as anything except repository of archived education. Master Edward Schoolman, teacher, Oxford, 17th March, 1628. End of file. Case closed to public record. The original document remains sealed within the vaults of the British Museum. Further access requires written authorization or curiosity strong enough to ignore the warnings. Until next time. These are the National Occult Archives.